Today we are going to distort images using Puppet Warp. Puppet Warp can be used for many things, including text, drawings, and even photos. We'll start out with the basics of understanding how the tool works, and then we'll try it out on these different images. Let's jump into Photoshop and go to File, New to create a new document. I'm creating a 10" by 10" canvas with 300 pixels per inch. On my blank canvas, I'm just going to grab my paintbrush tool and draw a rough shape. This is just going to be a blob, so we have something to use for testing. Now I'm going to grab the paint bucket tool to fill in the blob. And I'm going to go ahead and pick a different color, but again, this doesn't matter at all as we are just using this blob for some random testing. Now for the Puppet Warp tool, go to Edit, Puppet Warp. The Puppet Warp tool is going to let us define some anchors on our blob. Click in different spots around your blob to add some of these anchors. Once you have anchors in place, click and drag one of your anchors around to see how the warping affects the shape. Go ahead and play around with Puppet Warp on your blob. If you need to remove an anchor, you can right-click on it and select Delete. Once you are done, you can click the check mark on the top bar to accept your warp changes. Note that puppet warping alters the original image. If this was an image that we cared about, we would have created a copy of the layer before using Puppet Warp. Now that we've gotten the hang of Puppet Warp, let's test it out on some text. Let's go to File, New again, and create another 10" by 10" canvas. Now I'm going to grab the Text or Type tool on the left-hand toolbar. With the Type tool selected, I'm going to go ahead and choose a font. Then I'm going to click anywhere on the canvas and start typing. Just type any word, your name, or a few random letters. It's obviously too small, so I'll select all the letters by hitting Ctrl-A, and then I'll change the font size. I also can't see my text because it's the same color as my background. With the text still selected, I will change the color of it from the top toolbar. Now we can see it. Select your Move tool from the upper left-hand sidebar and move your text around. You can also make it bigger by dragging the corners. Once you have your text in place, we need to do one more thing before we can use the Puppet Warp tool. We need to rasterize the layer. Rasterizing the layer will mean the text is no longer editable. You won't be able to change the words or font after rasterizing, so make sure you have those set. Right-click on your text layer in the Layers panel and select Rasterize Type. After rasterizing, we can see that the image for the layer has changed. It is no longer a type or text layer, it is now just an image layer. Now that we have our text rasterized, we can go ahead and use the Puppet Warp tool. Go to Edit, Puppet Warp. If we put just a single anchor on a letter, Puppet Warp allows us to move that letter all over the place. If we put 2 anchors on a letter, then we can spin one anchor around the axis of the other anchor. And of course, if we put many more anchors on the letters, then we can do lots of stretching, squishing, and distorting. Go ahead and distort your letters to your liking. Once you're done, click the check mark on the top bar to accept your Puppet Warp changes. Another thing we can do, since we have already rasterized the layer, is use the paint bucket to change the color of individual letters. I'm going to give each of my letters their own color. And there's our own Puppet Warped text example. Oftentimes you'll see Puppet Warp used on text when the text needs to fit inside an odd shape, stretch around an object, or maybe just emphasize a certain word. Now that we've done the text example, let's move on to something even more fun. Go to File, Open, and open up the file called randommonster.png. Here we have a drawing of a monster. Before I begin warping this drawing, I want to make a copy of my layer so that I always have a copy of the original. Click on the layer in the Layers panel and drag it to the plus icon at the bottom to create a duplicate layer. Make sure to turn the original layer off by clicking on the eyeball next to it. Now let's go to Edit Puppet Warp. Now let's place some anchor points and reposition the monster. Maybe move the arms around, antenna, or feet. When you move one part of the drawing in front of another part, it's hard to guess if it will actually end up in front of or behind it. But you can always right-click on that piece to select Move to Front or Back. We'll see this soon. Let's accept our changes for this first copy, and make a new copy of the original layer to make another warp. Make sure you turn the eyeballs off of all the layers except for the new copy that we will be working on. Go ahead and go to Edit Puppet Warp. Reposition this copy using the Puppet Warp anchors, accept your changes, and then let's make one last copy of the original layer to work on. Here we are on our third copy. On this one I'm going to also try to move the mouth around a bit. And I'm going to move the arm behind the body. As you can see, the arm initially goes in front of the body. To move it behind, I will right-click on the anchor and select Send Backward. Once I've moved a few more things around, I'm going to accept my changes. Now we have 4 versions of our monster, the original and the 3 copies that we used Puppet Warp on. I'm going to use Quick Export as PNG to export each one individually. The PNG file will maintain the transparent background. For this last one, I'll use Export As, just so you can see that you can also export PNGs from this window. Now we have our 4 exported monsters. Let's put them all together in one image. Go to File, New, and create a 30-inch by 30-inch canvas. Use the paint bucket to fill in a background color. Now we could use the File Place Embedded menu to select and embed the PNG files that we just exported. But since we still have the previous file open, I'm going to show you a different way to copy your monsters onto this canvas. First, switch back to the previous file where we have the different versions of our monster drawings. Then make sure you have just one layer displaying and selected, and click on the Move tool in the upper left sidebar. Now click inside the box surrounding your drawing and drag the drawing to the other tab with your new canvas, and let go. Go ahead and repeat this process with each of the 3 remaining drawings. There we go. Now we have all 4 poses of our monster in one picture. Go ahead and export this image. This image no longer has any transparency since we gave it a background, so I'm going to export it as a JPEG. We've just used Puppet Warp to reposition a drawn character. And now, lastly, we are going to test out using Puppet Warp on a photograph. Go ahead to File, Open, and open up the photo of the Flamingo by Raoul Croes. Here we have our flamingo photo open. First things first is to create a copy of the photo so that we have an original that will stay intact. Now I only want to distort the position of the flamingo, not the background, so I need to select the flamingo and place it on a different layer. Go to Select, Subject, and let Photoshop find your flamingo for you. Use your copy shortcut, Ctrl-C or Command-C to copy the selected area, then create a new layer in the Layers panel. With the new layer selected, use the Paste shortcut, Ctrl-V or Command-V, to paste the copied image. Now we have 3 layers. The bottom layer is the original image, which we will leave untouched and hidden. The top layer is the flamingo that we will distort with Puppet Warp, but this middle layer needs some updates still. The middle layer needs to maintain the background that will be behind our distorted flamingo, but we need to remove the original flamingo from this middle layer. Once we remove the flamingo, we also need to fill in the background so we don't have a flamingo-shaped hole in it. To accomplish this, we are going to click on the middle layer in the Layers panel, and then go to Select Subject one more time to get the flamingo selected. Once the flamingo is selected, we are going to go to Edit, Content Aware Fill. This will open up the Content Aware Fill window. And because we had a selection already, it will assume that we want to fill over the selection to match the surrounding content. The left side of the window shows the original image, the selection that will be removed, and the green area that will be used to inform Photoshop of how to fill in the removed section. The right side of the window shows what the final image will look like after the content-aware fill. This is a process-intensive action, so the right window sometimes takes a bit of time to refresh. Our selection was a little too tight on the flamingo, leaving a visible outline. To fix this, I will grab the lasso tool and draw a larger outline around my selection. The updated image looks pretty good, but there appears to be some water where sand should be. I'm going to include more sand on the left-hand window so Photoshop has more sand to work with in its content-aware fill. I'm happy with this result, so I'm going to click OK. Note that I have Output to set to New Layer. So in this case, the fill portion will end up on its own layer. I probably should have chosen Output to Current Layer, but we can fix that by merging the 2 layers. Here's our new layer with our content-aware fill. I'm going to select both of the middle layers, right-click and choose Merge Layers. Now we have a clean background for our flamingo. Now we'll go ahead and deselect our selection. Go to the Select menu and click Deselect. As you can see by now, it's a lot more work to use Puppet Warp on an actual photo with a background. We're 4 minutes into this section of the video and haven't even touched the Puppet Warp tool yet, but we finally made it. Let's turn on our top Flamingo layer and go to Edit Puppet Warp. Go ahead and add some Puppet Warp anchors to your Flamingo and reposition it however you like. It always takes a little trial and error to get the hang of Puppet Warp on a new image, so don't be discouraged if you find you need to use Edit Undo a number of times. Once you've repositioned your Flamingo, you can go ahead and export your new image as a JPEG. Phew, that was a long one. You practiced using Puppet Warp on shapes, text, drawings, and finally, photos. As you can see, there's a lot you can do with this tool. Try thinking about what cool or funny distorted images you can create.